Rodgers ever go to the Bears?
No, but I believe there's a team that might play in Chicago this year. On a road trip. I don't know. I'm not sure. Gotta check it out.
Hey, in this business, we call that foreshadowing, and it's finally come to fruition. Aaron Rodgers headed to Pittsburgh. Welcome to NFL Live. Phil Murphy here. We're running 21 personnel today. Kevin Clark, Jeremy Fowler in the studio. Mina Kimes, she'll be in the big screen with us. Aaron Rodgers, he's got a gold jacket with his name on it someday, but for now, he's in black and yellow. Let's dive into it. Last season, QBR, not kind to Rodgers. He ranked 25th. Total QBR 48th. He also ranked 28th in yards per attempt. That downfall did predate his torn Achilles. You see 2022, last year with the Packers, he was 26th in QBR, but that was after leading the league, not just 2021 on screen, 2020 as well. He won MVP both of those years. Jeremy, we know Rodgers is a Steeler. How did we finally get to this point?
Constant communication. Mike Tomlin, OC Arthur Smith, talking up with Rodgers the last few weeks just to make sure everybody was comfortable, meaningful conversations. And then I was told Thursday morning inside the Steelers building is when this really started to intensify. And actually some relief set in because everybody there, everybody involved felt that this was going to happen. They expected it, but they never really got an affirmative yes until that point. And so that's when the ball got rolling, and now everybody's excited. You know, they gave Rodgers time, too, with the personal matter he had. I was told that that was big for them to just try to be patient through this process, let him work that out. That was real. And then now they got him. They believe he's been in excellent shape training in L.A., and he's ready to go.
Not a huge surprise ultimately that we got here, but that tension started to build as the calendar says June. I mean, Rodgers in his prime, we know routinely 30 to 40 touchdowns to 5 picks maybe on a year. What are the Steelers getting with Rodgers at QB in 2025?
If he plays like he did last year or the year before his Achilles injury, a below-average quarterback. You know, watching him with the Jets, it wasn't helped by the offensive line and the lack of an efficient run game, but you really saw some of the flaws I think you saw prior to his exit from Green Bay. And the one thing that jumped out to me, he still has arm strength. He can still make throws down the field, outside the numbers. Quick game, he's still accurate. But the intermediate throws that the best quarterbacks in the NFL dine on in that 10 to 20-yard range was really missing for Rodgers last year in that part of the field. 10 to 20 yards, 30th in QBR, 30th in EPA per play, 29th in completion percentage over expected. Now, there's a chance that a year removed from his Achilles injury, maybe he's more comfortable moving around in the pocket, navigating pressure. But he's 42 years old. I don't know if that's a bet I'm comfortable to make, so I would keep my expectations pretty tempered.
When I look at this situation, I'm going to give a take that you probably are not going to hear a lot. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be bad. It's going to be average, which is good enough to get the Steelers to the playoffs. When I think about Aaron Rodgers right now in his early 40s, I think about a guy who can't move, but what can he do? He can be really good pre-snap, and he can throw the deep ball. That's two pretty good things. You add that with DK Metcalf, and you got something cooking. But when I think about this offense, I need to see a merging between Arthur Smith's idea of offense and Aaron Rodgers. With Matt LaFleur and the MVP era, which I would call maybe 2019 to 2021, it was Rodgers getting his back to the defense, play action, understanding there were other ideas in offense that were not just Aaron Rodgers and Nate Hackett and Mike McCarthy. So I want to see him buy into Arthur Smith. I want to see him play action. That's the kind of thing that can get Rodgers to be the 14th, 15th best quarterback in the NFL, and that's playoffs for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I don't know if I feel like loosely with the football at times when we talk about Aaron Rodgers buying into a new offense because I just don't believe it, right? He's going to run the Aaron Rodgers offense. Yeah. Quarterbacks don't get more accepting of change, usually older in their careers. And it is a little bit of a strange fit, Kevin. I mean, last year, Arthur Smith, that offense ran the 5th most under center snaps in football. Rodgers prefers to be in the gun. You saw that bottom 10 rate in New York. I don't know what this marriage looks like, but I do know this. They have to have a strong run game for any of this to work, and that is something that the Steelers have invested in. So that would probably be the biggest case for optimism, that we see a better Rodgers than we did last year with the Jets. If they can run the football better, then maybe he'll be in better down and distance.
A couple of years ago, I talked to Rodgers about how he basically invented that new offense with Matt LaFleur that won him an MVP, and a lot of it was blind throws. And who did he study when he was looking at blind throws? Ryan Tannehill and Arthur Smith. That was the buy-in. That was how he understood how to hang in the pocket and trust that offense. And so I wonder if he goes back to that a little bit, looks at that Tannehill tape from that year where Tannehill was one of the best quarterbacks in football, if you guys remember, borrow from that. If I'm Arthur Smith, I clip out that article I wrote a couple years ago and put it in his locker and say, look, you watched me. You watched me.
That plug there.
Hey, fine. It's going to be fine. Fine would be an upgrade for the Pittsburgh at the end of last season. Steelers, 14.2 points per game in their last 5. Speaking of, that's now 5 different QBs to start week 1 for the Steelers in the last 5 years.
And you got Aaron Rodgers. So this came to a collective relief inside the Steelers building on Thursday morning. That's when people started to get indications that Rodgers was in affirmatively to go to the Steelers. Up to that point, they really hadn't gotten anything hard and fast. They just remained optimistic. But head coach Mike Tomlin, OC Arthur Smith, and others kept in contact, meaningful conversations with him throughout the process, and then they got it done. They have their man.
It is the story of the week, if not the offseason, Jeremy. And for more on this Rodgers edition in Pittsburgh, we welcome in Steelers reporter Brooke Pryor. So, Brooke, what have you heard about this Rodgers-Steelers decision finally getting across the finish line?
Well, like Jeremy said, there's definitely a sense of relief that it's done, but it's really been business as usual here in Pittsburgh in about the 24 hours since Aaron Rodgers officially became a Steeler. And that's because they were optimistic all along that this was a deal that would get done. In text conversations I've had with people in the building, there is excitement, but also this acknowledgement of it's time to go to work. And that's what I've heard from players throughout the last 6 OTAs practices, even when they were just talking in hypotheticals about what it would mean to have Aaron Rodgers in the building. The thing I think back to most is what left tackle Broderick Jones told me when I asked him, hey, are you nervous about having to catch up with Aaron Rodgers? This guy is very meticulous. You're working on building a rapport between the offensive line and the quarterback. And he said, no, that is all up to Aaron Rodgers and his demeanor and what kind of fire he has up under him when he gets here. He told me if he comes in feeling like he has to prove something to everybody, he's going to be ready to work. So we'll see just how much of a fire Aaron Rodgers has when he gets to minicamp on Tuesday.
Mandatory minicamp June 10th. Brooke Pryor, thanks so much. Well, now former Steeler Russell Wilson's part of a crowded QB room with the Giants. New York also signed Jameis Winston, re-signed Tommy DeVito, and drafted Jackson Dart in the first round. Here's Wilson yesterday on the rookie Dart and the overall QB room vibes.
Jackson's been great, man. He's a great worker, great teammate. We're having fun, all of us. We have a really good quarterback room. Guys are so focused and working diligently every day. He's going to be an extremely good talent, and everything else, throughout his career.
The first team ever to add multiple QBs with 150 passing touchdowns, and they trade up to take Jackson Dart in the first round. Kevin, what is the best case scenario with these Giants QBs this season?
The best case scenario is that Jackson Dart shows he's the franchise guy and saves everybody's job, except Russell Wilson's. I say this lovingly, Russell Wilson, you've had an amazing career. The next stop is podcasting, so get that mic ready. It's coming very soon because this is Jackson Dart's franchise. This is not Russell Wilson's. It's not Jameis Winston's. I was surprised at the way they built the QB room, knowing they would probably take a first-round quarterback just from a job preservation standpoint. The best way for Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen to stay in New York is to have a young quarterback show flashes. So the best-case scenario is in October, November, December of this year. It is obvious that Jackson Dart is the guy. Everybody's on track. Everybody's on board. That is all they're going for this year.
Kevin, you couldn't even put him on TV. You had to go straight to podcasting. Come on, man. Put him on a desk at least.
He's not
Russell
here.
Wilson. You
Over
want
here.
Super
I'll
Bowl.
sit here. It's fine. We got room.
Job
flip it
preservation.
around.
I get it.
Yeah, it's my job preservation. I'm like Daboll.
Yeah, right.
Well, speaking of job preservation, I agree with you that that's the best case scenario, but I also harbor some concerns, which is I fear that because of job preservation and part of the Giants front office and coaching staff, Jackson Dart might start before he's ready. Yeah. And the Giants schedule is brutal. Beginning of the season, we've all looked at it. This is not a very good offensive line. Their best player, left tackle Andrew Thomas, is coming back from injury. Outside of him, just a lot of question marks across the board. Malik Neighbors is a superstar, but behind him, it's not a group of all-world pass catchers either. Do we really feel good about putting Jackson Dart into this ecosystem, especially with that transition coming from the Ole Miss offense to the pros? I'd be apprehensive of that, even though I do agree. Obviously, as a Giants fan, you're hoping you get to see the young quarterback, and you're also hoping that he plays well. If
you're a Giants fan, you got to hope it gets better than 15.9 points per game over the last 2 seasons, second worst in the NFL. You presume it can only go up from here. The question that has dominated the offseason, I guess, gives way to another. Aaron Rodgers is a Steeler. Now what? Jeremy Fowler, it did feel more like a question of when more than if. But sure. Now that we got here, how did this get done?
A lot of patience from the Steelers. They were simply willing to wait this out because they knew Aaron Rodgers would eventually commit, and they knew he had a personal issue that he was working with. They were comfortable giving him the grace and time that he needed. They were hopeful it'd be before minicamp, and it turns out it was, but they didn't get really an intense feeling that this was going to go down for sure until Thursday morning, I was told. That's when there was really like a buzz in the building and really a little bit of relief too, because they wanted to move on and get on with their offseason with Aaron Rodgers. He's told them he's been in good shape. He's been training out in the offseason in LA. He's worked with DK Metcalf, so they're off to a bit of a good start. Mike Tomlin's been heavily involved in this recruitment. They've been having several meaningful conversations throughout this.
So you talk about that work with DK Metcalf. Kevin, something you brought up earlier, a matter of chemistry, working with a new OC, Arthur Smith. How does Rodgers fit into the Arthur Smith style?
That's up to him. That's up to him. He wants to run the Aaron Rodgers offense, which is use a strong snap count to let the defense declare, not a lot of motion, not a lot of shifts, not a lot of play action. Arthur Smith doesn't use a lot of motion and shifts, but he wants to run the play action, turn your back to the defense, that kind of thing. I think Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers are both going to have to give a little bit for this offense to work. They're both going to have to meet in the middle, very similar to what Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers did 5 years ago in the MVP era. I think it can happen. Aaron Rodgers needs to understand this is his last chance. They are going to solve each other's problems. The Steelers needed a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers needed a home with credibility. Aaron Rodgers is settling. I have lots of friends in their 40s who have settled, and it was great for them. It's going to be fine. They're going to be good.
None of this will work. Even if Rodgers does buy in, which I'm skeptical of, none of it will work, regardless of what the offense looks like, if they can't run the football better than they did last year. And that's something that they've invested in. Spent a third-round draft pick on a running back this year, Caleb Johnson, who I do think is a very good fit for the Arthur Smith sort of wide zone run game. But the offensive line is very strong on the interior. Tackle's a question. Broderick Jones at left tackle is the player that I think could be the pivot point of this season, both in terms of run blocking and pass protection. Rodgers needs to be part of a more balanced offense.
One quick thing to Mina's point. When I talked to somebody with the Steelers last night about Rodgers, first guy they mentioned was Caleb Johnson, who Mina just mentioned. Like, they believe that he's going to make an instant impact.